Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of On the Beat. I'm Tony Olivero here with my fellow basketball beat writers Andrew John, Brett LoGiurato, back from Cleveland. Syracuse season comes to an end, 66-62 loss to Marquette in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Earlier exit than most probably were hoping for here in Syracuse, but it was against a tough Marquette team. Beat them once previously this season. You guys were there covering the game, saw the emotion post game, but that end game situation has been much talked about. What should we take away from it, from what occurred, but also what didn't occur? Andrew, we'll start with you.
I mean, there's a lot that went on. Obviously, the turnover where Dion Waiters passed the ball, he inbounded the ball to Scoop Jardine. Scoop stepped on the half-court line, as we saw on the replay after. Ended up being the costly turnover that ended Syracuse's season as Marquette went down and hit a three on the other end. It's interesting because Brandon Trish was out of the game. He had a bruised tailbone that he suffered earlier in the second half, and because Dion Waiters was playing so well, they kept him in the game. And also, as Boeheim said, because they weren't sure how Trish would be able to play when he got back on the floor. But ultimately, it was the costly mistake of a freshman inbounding the ball. Obviously, we don't want to blame it on one guy, but that certainly was a play that ended up being costly for them. And you have to wonder what could have happened if Trish would have been able to go.
Right. Good point. Valid points. I'm going to throw it over to Brett, but it didn't appear as if, and technically in the rule book, it wasn't a backcourt violation, but it did appear as if it was a travel. So, but even beyond that, it should have been a turnover. Scoop took 3 steps, but just the fact that you had Waiters, almost the lack of communication and cohesion there in the late game situation. Andrew touched on it. What's your thoughts on everything involved?
I think it goes along with the theme of the day, which many of SU's players relayed in the locker room after, and basically saying, we threw the game away, and it's true. Jim Boeheim said it in his press conference. Basically, Waiters just needed to. It's the simplest of inbounds plays, and Scoop made a move, and Dion just needed to wait another second or two to get that, probably a second, just to get that pass off in the backcourt. And just like you said, a lack of communication there, and SU went from a game that with 2 minutes left was pretty much firmly in its grasp. And even then, with 51 seconds left, SU was firmly in control, in possession of the ball, to now the game was obviously not in their control, and completely turned the momentum and turned the game on its edge.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of encapsulated the whole season, just with kind of not being in control. Even the comeback against UConn in that last minute, it was almost forced and desperate with Scoop hitting those shots. Yes, he hit the shots, but still, that play was designed to go to Chris Joseph. Perhaps the pass could have gotten there. It almost seems as if Joseph didn't demand the ball enough, and then it just seems as if no one was on the same page, even throughout the whole game. Rick's obviously getting double-teamed. He's the best player out there on the floor for SU, but still, just the continuity out there, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But you mentioned Brandon Trish's injury. It was a bad injury. On CBS or True TV, they zoomed in on him for 5 seconds, and it was pretty. It seemed pretty grueling. What was Trish like after the game, but also with Dion coming in, thoughts on his performance, but what SU gained with Dion in, and also what they lost with Brandon out?
Right. Trish was in a lot of pain, especially. I don't know how much they showed him on TV, but just looking at him on the bench, he was just grimacing. He was at points while play was going on, he was trying to stand up and stretch it out, and it just wasn't working for him. During timeouts, Brad Pike would try to work with him too, and just nothing seemed to be working. So he, after the game, obviously he said he wasn't feeling well, but he mentioned that a big reason that he, decided not to try to go back in, and Jim Boeheim decided not to try to put him back in, was the play of Dion Waiters, and he was probably one of the few who really came to play on Sunday, and it just seemed like whenever one possession I remember him calling for the ball pretty much, and once he got the ball, he just took it right to the rack. He was determined, and he really came to play on Sunday.
Yeah, aside from that one play where he made the poor decision
Right.
in batting the ball out of bounds, would you say that Dion might have had the strongest second half of? I mean, obviously he led the team in points, but just even, I guess, maybe most even keeled out there, and just, I guess maybe maturity even wise over even a guy like Scoop. Obviously Brandon was out, but even Chris, didn't do much there in the second half. I mean, Dion being the freshman, almost being kind of the heady player out there. Should that not, I guess, does that not say a lot about the team, the performance yesterday?
Yeah, I think it says a lot about him, and it says a lot about the team. To have a freshman who really, hasn't been one of the better players on the team. The fact that he comes out and was clearly the best player for Syracuse in the second half, at least offensively. He was able to get anything he wanted. He was getting to the rack with ease. As Brett mentioned, he was demanding the ball, and he wasn't forcing things. He was playing with an offense. I think that was the most impressive thing about it, was that things were coming so easily for him. The reason why I think Syracuse was there in the final moments, having a chance to win the game, was because of the play of Dion Waiters. That obviously doesn't erase the costly mistake, but it's a lot to be said about the rest of the team when they couldn't step up to match the play of a freshman.
Yeah, and obviously it's kind of still in the moment here. It's kind of still setting in for this team, and also for the city and for this university that they lost in the second round. But still, Marquette's a good team, and the rest of the biggies kind of flamed out in the first and second round. Anyways, what is the instant kind of, I guess, feedback and reaction and just feel after this loss? Marquette's a good team. See how much further they go. Everybody thought it was going to be a tough game. When they saw the draw, they thought it was going to be tough. But they only went 2 games into the Big East tournament as well. What is the immediate reaction and feel on this game, but also how the season ended, and even a little bit of the entire season of kind of where things ended up? Andrew?
Well, I had a chance to cover the first matchup between these two in Milwaukee, and I was convinced coming into this game that Syracuse was the better team, even though Marquette, beat them fairly convincingly in the first one. But I think Syracuse had, the more talent, probably a little more depth as well. But coming into this game, Syracuse was also a little bit more volatile. I think they had some really high games and some really low games. They had that 4-game streak where they lost 4 in a row, and they lost 6 of 8, and that can't be ignored no matter how well they played at times this season. They're a team that you really didn't know what you were going to get, and so coming into this game, it is tough to be really surprised with the fact that they got beat, even though it was against a team that they probably are better than, and obviously they lost twice to that team, so it's tough to justify that. But I think that they were the better team. They just they couldn't make the necessary plays, and Marquette did.
You mentioned the necessary plays. What just the instant field kind of feedback?
Yeah, and going off what you said, Andrew, everyone in the SU locker room was reluctant to. I mean, they didn't admit that Marquette was the better team. They kept saying we're the better team, and I mean I tend to agree with them. For the most part, they outplayed Marquette in pretty much every category on the stat sheet. But when it came down to it, Marquette made the plays that mattered. They made, again, 2 big threes, while SU makes the play like they had all game, the 18th turnover that cost them the game, and Marquette in the end, just because of those late plays, they deserve to win this game. So
yeah, and that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, we will have one more on the beat for you guys, wrapping up the entire season. But that's it for now for Andrew and Brett. Once again from 744 Ostrom. Again, Syracuse was a 66-62 Sunday to Marquette. Season's over, exiting the second round. Thanks, guys.